So, you know that you need to make a career pivot to be happier in your career and get paid better. But every time you try to figure out how to make a pivot, you feel kind of paralyzed. Should you go back to school? Should you just start applying to jobs online? How do you even know what other jobs you're qualified for? You're stuck between wanting to leave that bad job you're in and having no idea what your next step should be. Well, if that's where you are right now in your career, this video is going to give you literally the exact roadmap that you need because I'm going to walk you through my CLARE framework, which is the 5 steps that you need to make a successful career pivot. And as I teach you this framework, I'm actually going to share how I have used this exact process myself in my career when I pivoted from healthcare research to counseling. So that way you can see what each step looks like in your life. If you are new to this channel, hi. And if you're a regular viewer, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Dr. Tega. I'm a faith-based career coach who helps professional women leave draining jobs and land higher paying, more fulfilling careers by helping them first clarify and figure out their next career move and then job search without burning out. If you want to receive faith insights and career strategies directly to your inbox to help you find, secure, or keep a job that you would genuinely enjoy, then you should join the Career Catch Up. Career Catch Up is my weekly newsletter that is legit you having a career coach in your inbox. You can find the link to join us in the description below. Now let's get into today's video. So a lot of times when women have come to me to work with me as their career coach and they know that they need or want to make a career pivot to be fulfilled again, I often hear them say something along the lines of, I know I need to make a change, but I don't know how to actually do it. Where do I even start? And that's why they hire me as their coach. And I get it. Making a career pivot can feel overwhelming, especially when or if you have been in the same field for years and you don't even know what else is out there or what you're qualified for. Or maybe you're scared of making the wrong move. You're scared of starting over. You're scared of wasting time on trying to pivot. But a career pivot doesn't have to be chaotic or confusing. What you need is simply a framework, a step-by-step process that takes you from I'm stuck to I'm clear and confident about my next move. And that's exactly what I'm going to give you in this video. The framework that I'm sharing with you is called the CLARE Pivot, CLEAR. It makes up the same steps that I followed when I made my own career pivot years ago. And it's the same framework or concept that I now use to help my clients make their own career pivots and get paid more. But first, let me give you some context. So I grew up believing that I was going to be a pediatrician. I thought I was going to be a medical doctor. I majored in biology. I took the MCAT. I failed, by the way. And I ended up working in healthcare research because I failed the MCAT. But I was absolutely miserable. I was sitting in a tiny windowless office entering data all day about lung cancer patients. And I remember thinking, this cannot be what my life is supposed to be. Like, God did not create me to be miserable. And I knew that I had to pivot. And these are the 5 steps that I used to make my own pivot and ended up in a career path that I've been fulfilled in for over 10 years now. So let's talk through what those 5 steps are so you can see how you too can pivot your career to do something more fulfilling. The first step, C, is clarify who you are. Before you can figure out where to go in your career, you need to figure out who you are. You need to identify specifically your values, your interests, and your skills. And you need to break the lie that you can only do what you've already done in your career. Because what I see all the time happening with women who are trying to pivot is when you've been in your career for a while, so let's say 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, you start to believe that what you've done is all you can do, but that's not true. You can definitely be happy in more than one job, but you just need clarity to choose the right one. So when I was stuck in healthcare research, I took what I call an adult gap year. I moved back home to Nigeria to live with my parents, which was a massive privilege, by the way. And I just spent that time asking myself some questions like, who am I? What actually brings me joy? What do I value? What am I good at? And most importantly, what kind of work would make me feel alive? And that's when I started to realize, okay, hold up. I'm getting some insights here. I love helping people. I love conversations. I love problem solving with people, not just sitting behind a computer all day. And back then, this was years ago, I really loved working with kids, but I didn't want to be a teacher, which, by the way, is so ironic considering I ended up being a professor for the past 7 years. God is funny. But anyway, That clarity became the foundation for everything that came next in my career pivot. So you need to do this work first. Get clear on your non negotiable values, identify what energizes you in and outside of work and what drains you, and figure out what skills you actually enjoy using. Not just what you're good at, but what you enjoy using. The second step, L, is learn what is out there. So once you have clarity on who you are, now you need to research what industries, what roles, and companies actually align with who you are. So most women feel stuck, not because they don't have options, but because they haven't seen, like actually researched and looked at and read about their options yet. And this is where you build the skill of career research. A lot of people have never been taught how to do this. So you need to learn how to explore different roles, evaluate what's required, figure out what options are realistic for you. So during my gap year, I started researching different career paths that aligned with all that I had learned about myself, my values, and my interests. Like back then, I didn't even know counseling was an option at first. I never really worked with a counselor, heard about them. But as I did research, I discovered counseling, specifically school counseling, and I started learning what those roles involved, what training was required to become a counselor, and what the day to day work looked like. And this is also where I had to think about the pivot difficulty matrix, which I actually covered that in my last video about the 4 different types of career pivots. If you haven't watched that video yet, go back and watch it. It'll show up on the screen somewhere because that will really help you understand how difficult your chosen pivot might be based on whether you're changing your role, your industry, or both of those. So for me, after getting clarity, I was making a type 4 pivot, new role and new industry. I was going from healthcare research to counseling. That meant that I needed to learn about both the new industry and the new role. So for step 2, you need to do the research. Look at the job descriptions for roles that interest you. Talk to people who are already doing that type of work. Learn what the industry culture is like and figure out what path makes sense for you. So before I get into the next 3 steps, if you're finding this helpful so far and want a more practical tool and resource to help you actually make your pivot into a new career path that you can enjoy, you should definitely check out my Peaceful Pivot Guide. That guide will help you pivot without wasting time, starting over in your career, or even taking a pay cut. I'll talk a bit more about it at the end of this video, but if you want to check it out now, you can click the link in the description of this video. Now let's talk about step 3 in the 5-step process. The third step, E, is evaluate your pivot tolerance. So once you know what options are out there, you need to evaluate what level of investment you're willing to make. An investment doesn't automatically mean money. It also means time and energy. Are you willing to go back to school? Are you willing to get a certification? Are you willing to take a pay cut temporarily? That's not my favorite option. Or do you need to make a direct pivot with no additional training? Not every pivot is wise for your season of life, but every woman can make a strategic pivot. So, for example, when I discovered counseling, I had to make a decision. Was I willing to go back to school for a master's degree? Because that is what was required to become a counselor in the United States. That was a big commitment of time, money, and energy. And so I had to evaluate, is this realistic for me? Is this something that I'm willing to do? And for me, candidly, the answer was yes. First, I was privileged enough to have financial support from my parents throughout that process. I knew that if I wanted to become a counselor, I needed that degree. So I applied to graduate programs and got accepted. But that decision was based on my clarity and my research. I wasn't just randomly going back to school hoping it would work out. I had a clear plan. So for step 3, ask yourself, what am I willing to invest in this pivot? What is realistic for my life right now? And choose a role that makes sense for your goals and your constraints. The 4th step, A, is articulate your value. Once you know what role you're going after, you need to learn how to actually now market yourself for that role. You don't just need the skills to do the job, you need the story that sells your skills because, again, you're moving industries. And here's the key. You can't speak in the language of your old industry. You have to be able to translate your experience into the language of the new industry you're pivoting into. That means updating your resume, your LinkedIn, your interview responses. Everything needs to reflect the new role you're going after. It needs to become your identity. So when I was applying to graduate programs and eventually applying for counseling jobs, I couldn't just say, I worked in healthcare research. I had to actually articulate how my research skills, my data analysis skills, my attention to detail skills, my ability to work independently, how all of those things translated to the skills I would need as a counselor. And later, when I was job searching after grad school, I had to even learn how to position myself because I couldn't use acronyms or terms from the psychological healthcare research I was doing. I had to speak the language of counseling and education. So, for step 4, you need to learn how to tell your story in a way that makes sense to the new industry. Avoid using insider language from your old field. You want to show hiring managers that you understand the new role and that you can do the work. The 5th and final step R is resilience through the process. Because here's what nobody tells you about career pivots. They take time. The average job search, even without a pivot, is 3 to 6 months. When you're making a pivot, it might take you even longer, candidly. And you need to be able to stay patient, persistent, and resilient. Your pivot will take time, but it will be so worth it. And this was definitely my story. I needed to remain resilient at multiple points of my pivot. First, when I moved back to Nigeria during my gap year, I low-key felt like a failure. I felt like I had wasted years pursuing the wrong career, and I had to stay motivated throughout that season, and it was hard. But it was that time that I did research, figured out my next move, and applied to grad school. I used that time wisely, and I had to lean on my faith and trust that the Lord was redirecting me. And then, second, after I finished my master's degree in counseling and I started what till today I call my first big girl job search, let me be honest with you, it was hard. I applied to over 50 jobs, 50, and I heard back from only one company till today, just one. I was filling out applications over and over again. I was tweaking my resume. I was getting ghosted. This was before I had the skills I do now, but I didn't give up. I stayed resilient, and that one job hired me. Like the one job I heard from hired me, kicked off the trajectory of me being fulfilled in my career for the past 12 years. So your final and ongoing last step is to just let the process take time. Don't get panicked when it feels slow. Lean on faith, lean on strategy, lean on support, and stay resilient throughout the process. So let's recap the Clear Pivot method. C is clarify who you are. L, learn what's out there. E, evaluate your pivot tolerance. A, articulate your value. And R, resilience through the process. This is the framework that helped me go from being miserable and unhappy in healthcare research to fulfilled as a counselor and eventually a professor, and now as a business owner. And this is the exact same framework and process that I use to help my clients who have successfully pivoted into new careers. Now, if you want to walk through this framework to help you make your own career pivot while increasing your salary, you need to get my step-by-step peaceful pivot guide. The guide includes worksheets, reflection prompts, AI prompts, and more practical resources to help you make your own career pivot. You'll get guided questions, action steps, practical tools that will help you pivot without taking a pay cut or starting over in your career. You can learn more and get your copy at pivotwithpeace.com, or you can click that link in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. That way you don't miss future videos that will help you as you plan out and make your career pivot. Now, once you hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons below, don't click away because there is another video popping up on the screen right here. So go ahead and watch that video if you haven't watched it already so that I can continue supporting you in your career.